It was early this evening when I realized that so much was happening in the world, and I'm feeling under the weather. You might be able to tell it in my voice, although I'm not sure. There's so much happening in the world. There's so much content that just generated in a 24-hour span that I was like, I have at least 3 hours of content to cram into 2 hours, and that's the objective. That's what I'm going to do. I'm cramming 3 hours of content into 2 hours, which means if you're watching this after the show on double speed, you're going to get 6 hours of content in an hour, probably. Insights like those and a whole lot more right after a word from our sponsor.
The following program does not have a normal
intro
because I was really too busy smoothing other things over to get it done. So, Ori.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I'm your host, Joe Neerman, aka Good Lawgic. I don't know if you can tell, my voice is not in the pink of things. And I'm not sure if I'm at the start of like a really terrible type of like flu, or if it's just like a 24-hour thing, which is not going to, I don't feel as terrible as I sound. I don't think. I just feel achy and like slightly congested. But I'm going to plow on through. And after this show, because I don't expect to get to everything that I put there's no way. It's just not going to happen. I am planning on doing a locals, which is probably where we're going to end up covering that whole question, which was raised by the quartering, and the concept as to whether or not gay adoption is a form of human trafficking, which I think has interesting philosophical questions. And I want to try to assess that. I don't expect to get to that in this show. I do expect to get to it in locals. You can catch that in the description below. Is in the description? Did I put it in the description? I think I put it in the description. I might not have put it in the description. I probably should put it in the description. It's going to be in the description. By the time you look at the description, it's going to be in the description. That's what, yeah, it isn't. Now it's in the description. Okay. First and foremost, Judge Chutkan, presiding over the Trump's D.C. criminal case, may no longer be presiding. At least as of today, she's not presiding, thanks to her own order, which says, I'm sort of done here. Sort of done here. I don't really want to be done. You can tell when you're reading the decision, and we are going to read the decision. Fortunately, it's not very long at all. It's all 3 pages. When she issues this opinion and order, that there's such deep sadness, deep sadness when she wrote this, recognizing that the chances of her being able to hold a criminal trial for President Trump before the 2024 election, those chances are looking slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. Frankly, I don't think she's ever going to get that trial. That's my personal opinion. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But we should look at it. And when I'm reading through this, I'm going to give you my legal perspectives on it. We should understand the gravity with which she wrote this opinion and order. I'm going to try and set the mood appropriately, so we can all appreciate there's what the words are, and then there's the tone of sadness, the tone of emptiness, of despair. Judge Chutkan's tone of despair, and trying to save face with a little bit of it, trying to save a little bit of face, and not even sure if she'll be able to hold on to that. It's quite delicious. So, without further ado, let's read from Judge Chutkan in her own words. On December 4th, 2023, the court issued a memorandum opinion and order denying defendants' motions to dismiss based on presidential immunity, constitutional grounds. Defendant has appealed that decision, filed a motion to stay proceedings pending appeal. For the reasons set forth below, the court will grant in part and deny in part defendant's motion. Quote, the filing of a notice of appeal is an event of jurisdictional significance. It confers jurisdiction on the Court of Appeals and divests the district court of its control over those aspects of the case involved in the appeal. So anything that's up for appeal is now out of my hands. I can't weigh in on it at all. In Coinbase Inc. v. Bielski, the Supreme Court applied the Griggs principle to an interlocutory appeal, the denial of motion to compel arbitration, holding that any further proceedings before the district court must automatically be stayed. The court reasoned that because whether the litigation may go forward in the district court is precisely what the Court of Appeals must decide, it makes no sense for trial to go forward while the Court of Appeals cogitates on whether there should be one. And the court analogized its holding to a similar decision in the context of appeals involving immunity and double jeopardy. It was pretty clear where the court was standing on this. As the DC Circuit recently made clear, a former president's absolute immunity would constitute an entitlement not to stand trial or face other burdens of litigation, such as discovery obligations. Meaning the circuit court has already recognized that when the heart of the matter is up for appeal and a successful motion, a successful appeal by the defendant would win, we're not allowed to proceed down here with discovery. I'm legally obligated to stay this thing. I had my heart set. Jackie and I, we were going to have such a good time on March 4th, swearing in those witnesses, bringing in all those very, very impartial DC jury pool members, so then come in here and say that while they really despise and hate and loathe Donald Trump, that they actually think they could be fair. And I was going to give them all the blessing that they were unbiased, impartial, and perfect members of a jury. But now that's all on hold. Thus, because defendant has appealed the court's denial of that immunity, whether litigation may go forward in the district court is precisely what the Court of Appeals must decide. Consequently, the court agrees with both parties that defendant's appeal automatically stays any further proceedings that would move this case towards trial or impose additional burdens of litigation on defendant. I'm not allowed to give him more burdens because he might not actually have to go to trial if the appellate court recognizes that I was a complete idiot in denying his motion in the first place. Accordingly, and for clarity, the court hereby stays the deadlines and proceedings scheduled by its pretrial order as amended. The court emphasizes, though, two limits on that stay. There's two limits. First, as defendant notes, the stayed deadlines and proceedings are held in abeyance rather than permanently vacated. If jurisdiction is returned to this court, if somehow I'm validated by the court and this whole thing isn't thrown out, it will, consistent with its duty to ensure both a speedy trial and fairness for all parties, consider at that time whether to retain or continue the dates of any still future deadlines and proceedings, including the trial schedule for March 4, 2024. Second, let's be clear here. Mr. Tweeter, Trump. The court does not understand the required stay of further proceedings to divest it of a jurisdiction to enforce the measures it has already imposed to safeguard the integrity of these proceedings, including defendant's conditions of release. Meaning that while I'm not in charge now, all the things I put into place that restrict Trump, not things that obligate him to do things in the future, but anything that's already standing over his head, those, I understand those to still be in effect, still be in place, including the GAC. The protective orders governing discovery materials, I mean, you can't just start burning all your discovery because now you're not in front of this court. Because lack of jurisdiction means you're not in front of this court anymore. Like, I got no say over you. But I just want to clarify here that while I'm recognizing I have no say over you, I have no power over you any longer, That which I enacted before today hangs over you while this appeal is pending. And before I go further, I will say this. I think her conclusions on this part of it are logical. I think it is logical. If we're trying to weigh what's interest of fairness or whatever, and we take out that we're dealing with, President Trump, and we just look at, like, let's pretend this wasn't anyone that you or I heard of before, and just looked at it, some defendant out there, and let's say he was, like, not allowed to, like, do something, and it was the court found that to be the case. Well, because that might destroy the entire jury pool or whatever. Well, in that case, you can understand that would still be hanging over his head while the appellate court is deciding it. The point being the court is now, from this day forward, not allowed to make any further demands that will put future burdens on President Trump, including turning over discovery, appearing for trial, and taking care of all the steps necessary in pretrial litigation. So, unlike, for example, requiring additional discovery or briefing, maintaining those measures does not advance the case towards trial or impose burdens of litigation on the defendant beyond those he already carries. He already has to do this anyway, so it's not changing anything for him. And if a criminal defendant could bypass those critical safeguards merely by asserting immunity and then appealing its denial, then during the appeal's pendency, the defendant could irreparably harm any future proceedings and their participants. Meaning, if we were to say, let's pretend for a moment that her gag actually was genuinely something necessary and not something that was a ridiculous overreach by Judge Chutkan, which it clearly was, in my opinion. But let's assume for a moment that it really was, that he's, like, basically threatening people and really scaring, like, let's pretend he's some genuine mob boss. Okay. And, giving messages out there saying, like, I don't know if it's so smart for you to come testify. That might be something you come to regret in the future. Things of that nature, which are, there would be a pattern for some defendant like that. And he said, I don't want you talking to these witnesses or addressing them publicly. Let's say there was an order like that. You can understand why, just because there's a stay on discovery and trials and things like that, while the appellate court is deciding, should we keep this case? Should we throw it out? Should we keep the case? Might be immunity. Is there immunity? We have to decide, to think about it. So we're going to be mulling that over. So now the district court is put on hold. While the district court is put on hold, those orders designed to protect the witnesses, potential witnesses, have to stay there in case the case ends up going to trial, right? In case the defendant ends up losing. So that makes sense. That makes sense to me. That said, there's little precedent guide. Then she admits that even that's on tenuous ground, because she says there's little precedent guiding the application of drugs to such protective measures. I don't know that. In other words, what she's saying is there's really no law that says I am allowed to keep these protective measures in effect. But to me, it's logical that they should stay in effect. And what I'm saying is I happen to agree with her logic on this. It makes sense. I think philosophically it makes sense. I don't like the outcome of that logic, but I have to recognize, if I, divorce this case from and just think about legal jurisprudence in general, think about defendants in general, think about what's a logical way for us to run a criminal justice system, I have to admit that her conclusions here are logical, even though I don't like the application in this particular case, because I think that the protective orders that she put into place were stupid and ridiculous and violative of his First Amendment rights. But once they come to disregard the violation of his First Amendment rights, and it's protecting the potential witnesses, well, if we're talking about that overall thing, yeah, I agree that protecting potential witnesses should continue even if there is a stay. The Ninth Circuit, at least, has transferred a motion to enforce a protective order back to the district court, even though the circuit has taken jurisdiction over the merits of the decision below, including the judgment. Reading the district court has not been divested of its jurisdiction over ancillary matters such as protective orders. Meaning, in this case of Perry v. City, the Ninth Circuit said that those protective orders stay in place, and that those orders are still in the ambit of the district court, and they don't transfer up to the circuit court. But the parties have not identified, and the court is not aware of any guiding precedent in this circuit on the issue. Meaning, in the D.C. circuit, we haven't seen any. This never came up before, so I can't tell you what the law is here. because there is no law that's been set. The appellate circuit court has never weighed in over here. The Supreme Court's never weighed in on this. So I don't know that what I'm doing is legally, that I have legal authority to do this. All I know is that there's some sort of indicia from the Ninth Circuit, which is California. And out there, the federal court thinks that those protective orders stay by the district court. But that's not governing. The Ninth Circuit's not governing over me. And nothing, no court that's governing over me has ever decided this before. So this is Judge Chutkan actually being logical and fair in her application here. The parties are not identifying the court is not aware of any governing precedent in this circuit on this issue, much less instructive cases in the context of an interlocutory immunity appeal. In addition, defendant does not appear to argue that the protective measures are themselves stayed, meaning that his lawyers never claimed that he should be able to speak freely. Nonetheless, if he asks the court, let's say he does ask them next week, and he says, hey, I want all these different gags on me, I want them gone. So if he does make that request when reviewing his immunity appeal to also take temporary jurisdiction over the enforcement of those measures, he says to the circuit court, hey, I want you to reassess on this gag order. And that court agrees to do so, that this court, of course, will be bound by that decision. In other words, obviously, we're at the discretion of the circuit court. I'm just a junior. I'm a subordinate to the circuit court, and I recognize that. Whatever they decide, that's what we're going to follow. So the upshot of it all is March 4th, 2024 was supposed to be opening day. The day before Super Tuesday is when he was supposed to come in there. It does not seem possible that can happen. Now, if we get a quick decision from the circuit court or from the Supreme Court, because we said a couple of days ago, Jack Smith's trying to get the Supreme Court, and they turn around in a month and push everything back, so it's possible that everything get pushed back a month. It could take them 6 months to do it, though. It could take them whatever period of time they want to take on it. So all right. That's the story there. Okay. The dramatic reading is winning, Joe. Must make it a regular thing. I almost cry when I remember I'm a man and that ain't happening. Thank you. I hope you'd appreciate it. I hope you'd all appreciate it. Okay. Where was we? Next story. So that's the first thing is those of you who are looking forward to a trial happening on March 4th in D.C., I doubt it. Could it still happen? Theoretically. I doubt it. I don't think it's ever going to get to her. I don't think it's ever going to trial. My gut says it's never going to trial. I think the Supreme Court is going to kick that out. I think he's not going to trial. I don't know. It's going to be something they're going to decide in the next 6 weeks. It might be 2 or 3 months. But I don't think he's going to trial. I don't think any of these criminal trials are happening. Now, maybe the New York State one. But I don't think the other one's going to happen. New York State one's a little different. Okay. But I don't think so. I think even the New York State one is probably not that. But let's get to the next Supreme Court issue. Because the Supreme Court's been in the news today. Because there's another way that Trump got some good news today. More good news, more bad news for Jack Smith. Such a bad day. It must really suck to be Jack Smith today. This Jack Smith knew that this was going to come. That's why he went to the Supreme Court. He knew that Judge Chutkan was going to have to give this order. He knew that. He did not know this was going to happen. This had to really bum him out. Donald Trump doesn't know, Thomas. This is untested legal imaginations, the mother of Trump and January 6th prosecutions. What? And Julie Kelly, Real Clear Investigations. I recommend following Julie Kelly. This is her right here, Julie Kelly. She goes by Julie_Kelly too. And she does some good work. I'm a fan of Julie Kelly. I'm a fan of her work. Okay. Donald Trump doesn't know Thomas Robertson, but the former president's fate appears inextricably tied to that of the former Army Ranger who was convicted last year of his involvement in the January 6, 2021 protests. He was one of the J6ers. Because prosecutions of Trump and his supporters, including Robinson, have often depended on reimagining the law in novel ways. To advance the narrative that Trump colluded with Russia, for example, DOJ seized a little-used Foreign Agents Registration Act to justify probes and wiretaps of Trump allies. In the Georgia election fraud case against Trump, all of a sudden we get into RICO. In D.C., prosecutors are using a financial crimes, even though RICO is obviously meant not for like presidents committing crimes, but for like, mobsters. In D.C., prosecutors are using financial crime statute passed by Congress in 2002 in response to the Enron scandal to bring felony charges against hundreds of January 6 defendants. We had the whole Enron scandal, and somehow that now is being torn into how we should go after J6 defendants, including Trump and Robertson. Lawyers for both and for other J6 defendants argue the law is being misapplied. The controversy could soon wind up for the Supreme Court. Defense attorneys say the government is using the power of law enforcement to misinterpret and weaponize nebulous language in the legal code. So if they see an opening as to how they can try and go after people, they'll take the text of the code and say, well, it says this, which means that we now have the power to do this, even though the people who are writing the legislation seemingly never had any idea that the statute would be used in the way that these district attorneys are using it. In 3 separate motions filed on October 23rd, Trump's lawyers repeatedly raised objections based on the vagueness factor of the 4 counts in special counsel's Jack Smith's J6 criminal indictment against Trump. Those 4 charges are conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct, conspiracy against rights, and obstruction of official proceeding. Trump's alleged conduct, publicly and politically disputing the outcome of the election, attempting to convince Congress to act, and allegedly organizing alternate slates of electors, falls outside the plain language of the charge statutes, John Laurel, Trump's lead attorney in J6 case, wrote in a motion to dismiss. One of the key statutes in question, and this is the one that's coming before the Supreme Court, is 18 U.S.C. Code 1512C subsection 2, which we're going to look at that very closely. Part of the 2002 Sarbanes-Oxley Act passed by Congress to prevent fraudulent financial reporting by corporations. So the reason that they wrote this was because they didn't want fraudulent financial reporting. Statute was meant to close a loophole in other obstruction laws related to the destruction of evidence, but left open to interpretation the terms corruptly and official proceeding in the following passage. And here is the actual language of the statute. Whoever corruptly, and this is one of the key words, obstructs, influences, or impedes any official proceeding or attempts to do so shall be fined under the title. Now, understand that the context of what this whole thing was written was really C1. What's C1? Whoever corruptly alters, destroys, mutilates, or conceals a record, document, or other object, or attempts to do so with the intent to impair the object's integrity. So you go into your file room and you're like, oh my God, here's all these records here's all these bank records which show that I was stealing from the company, money that was supposed to go to shareholders. And you basically, take out 20 files and set fire to them. That could be a crime that could lead to 20 years. Because we don't want you doing stuff like that. Now, the other thing here is obstructs, influences, or impedes any official proceeding or attempts to do so. What does this mean? Why did they include this here? What was the thought process? What the hell does this even have to do with part 1? Think about the people who are authoring, think about Congress when they're authoring this statute. They're thinking, okay, the reason that these people are burning these records is because they're scared they're going to get convicted at trial. So they're basically taking whatever steps they can to obstruct justice from being implemented at a criminal trial. So now we Congress in 2002 want to make sure that you can't screw up a criminal prosecution against you by basically engaging in some sort of obstruction. And that's why we're going to, if we catch you in corruptly engaging in that, we're going to punish you by throwing you in prison for up to 20 years just for the very act of obstructing. But the way they end up wording it is something that says whoever corruptly obstructs, influences, or impedes any official proceeding or attempts to do so. What is an official proceeding? And what does corruptly mean? So what they're basically trying to say with these district attorneys, when they saw this language in this statute, they're like, well, trying to barge into Congress. Congress sounds like it's an official proceeding. When they're having this whole vote counting thing going on, the electors count, that sounds like an official proceeding. And you're trying to stop that from going on. But that's not what this statute was designed to do. Everyone recognizes that that's not when the authors wrote this statute. That's not what it was designed to do. It was designed to basically stop people from basically pilfering away, taking steps to hide things from a district attorney who's looking to investigate someone who's engaging in corruption. But because of the inartful wording that was written by Congress when they wrote this, you can see how a district attorney, when I first read this statute, not knowing the context, I was under the impression, I was like, yeah, that does sound like it's describing what happened on January 6th. You can't deny that, that assuming if you start with certain premises, that the objective, that is an official proceeding, which it seems on its face, if you say official proceeding, you think Congress getting together and in the Constitution have to get together, that sounds like an official proceeding. And when you say corruptly, it's like, well, these different states have sent in these electors, and you're basically trying to stop those electors from being, you can see how that sounds a little bit corrupt. I don't agree that there was corruption. I think that this was an objective to preserve our nation. I think that's what everyone was doing in DC on January 6th, that they were looking to preserve the integrity of our elections. But if you're not sitting where I'm sitting on this issue, and you're sitting on the other side of the aisle, and you're sitting there saying our elections are perfect, you can understand how they can say that you're corrupting our process. Imagine if January 6th happened on January 6th, 2017, when the electors are assembling for Trump, and they marched on in there, and they're basically saying the election was stolen, we have to save the nation, and they go in there and they had a siege on the Capitol on January 6th, 2017. You'd be like, these people are crazy, and they're acting corruptly, trying to obstruct an official proceeding. I think taken in that light, many of us would say, yeah, I would, if that did happen, I would understand why this statute could properly apply. Certainly if someone's engaging in illegal conduct on January 6th, if what they're doing is something illegal, you can understand how. I can see that. What do you mean, am I sick? I started off by saying I'm sick. Yes, I'm sick. I'm here putting in the time. I'm sick, for crying out loud. Okay? Yes, I'm sick. What do you want me to do? Let me use some voice changer. Hi, my name is... What am I supposed to do? I'm sick. Okay? I don't know what you want from me. Show me some love. Recognize my dedication and say, here, Joe, have some love. Have some love, Joe. Oh, God. Okay. So my point is that if you were sitting on the other side of the aisle, you can understand how the statute can be applied that way. But on the other hand, when we look at the statute and try and understand what the statute was really intended to do, you recognize it's got nothing to do with this type of scenario, which is why there's basically been this application to say, hey, if you have a statute that's intended to do A, and it's being used to, instead of apply to situation A, but to be instead to be applied in situation omega, you're like, that's not even the same freaking alphabet. I don't even know what the hell that is. What the heck's an omega? I don't even know what that is. So that means the statute itself should be void for vagueness. It's too vague. It could be read any freaking which way. So that's what the application is that's coming before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is now assessing whether or not this statute is too vague. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. So, Joe sounds sick. Thank you, Sporkio. Yes, I sound sick. Maybe this can buy you a couple of aspirin. Thank you, Slutty Pie, for the $1 for aspirin. I don't think aspirin's going to help my voice. So the DOJ's legal basis rests in the argument that the joint session of Congress held on January 6th to debate and certify the 2020 election was an official proceeding, as opposed to a ceremonial gathering. See, and look, I understand why they're calling it a ceremonial gathering. I understand that. If you're Trump's attorneys, you want to say, or J6 attorneys, defense counsel, you want to say it's not an official proceeding, it's a ceremonial gathering where everyone knows what's going to happen. Those who interrupted Congress, prompting a 6-hour delay or planned to disrupt it, committed the particular obstruction felony the prosecutors contend. Yes, cough drops are kosher. Most of them are. You think I could sit here sucking on a cough drop and talking for 2 hours without that thing clunking around in my mouth while my tongue is just... That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And I hate tea. So don't even... I don't want to hear tea. I can't stand tea. I think maybe I need tea. So, anyhow, bottom line is this. They charged more than 300 J6 defendants with obstruction under that statute. 300 people have been charged with obstruction. Smith handed down a 45-page indictment against Trump, claiming that his attempt to persuade Vice President Mike Pence to reject some electoral college votes was obstruction. That's he's relying on 18 USC 1512 C2 also. It's hardly the first time the DOJ sought to nab Trump on the obstruction count. They went all the way back to Robert Mueller. They went after him for it also. The second volume of Robert Mueller's report on the investigation into Russian interference went to the whole obstruction thing. He ended up saying that he didn't think it met the statute's largely undefined language as to what is obstruction. But the point is, it's a pretty vague statute. And now, if it gets knocked out, all of those charges related to obstruction, all those J6 defendants who were sent to prison, free. Arguably, the question that I think will, if in fact the Supreme Court were to knock out 18 USC 1512 altogether, while the question would come then, what about all those people who had that, were pled to lesser charges because they were afraid of that charge? Meaning, anyone who wasn't convicted of that charge itself, that charge is 20 years. Some people may have pled down to like 2 or 3 years, figuring that's better than 20 because they were facing that charge. Well, the only reason they pled to that is because they're facing a 20-year charge that they never should have been facing. To me, that's a fascinating legal question as to what happens to those people who basically had a fake sword, an illegal sword held to their throats and signed off on a plea deal. to my mind, I think that they should be able to basically, if they so choose, opt out of the deal and say whatever other charges you have, if there were other charges, I'm willing to face off on those. But I think it's a very interesting legal question. Like, if a statute that you were charged under basically flies off into the ether, what happens to people who pled guilty because of the threat of that charge, or pled guilty to lesser includeds because of the threat of that charge, where that threat, which was really an empty threat because it wasn't valid law to go after them, they never would have pled if not for facing those particular sanctions. I think it's a really interesting philosophical question. I'd love to hear some defense counsel who's actually covered this sort of thing. It's not that it wouldn't be as loud. You would literally see it kicking around in my mouth. It would be the most disgusting thing in the world. I have lozenges here. These are my nicotine lozenges. I don't know if that helps my throat. Would that help my throat? All right. Or your phone. It wouldn't be as loud on my phone. What the heck? Thank you. Thank you so much. Horrible remedy, but works overnight. Gargle with warm salt water before bed as much as you can. Feel better. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm plowing forward. Doesn't anyone want to talk about 18 U.S.C. 1512? There's only 300 J6 defendants who are sitting in jail because of this, in this potentially illegal application of the law. Jenny L, thank you so much. Hello, maybe some Vicks or night. Now I'm feeling fever. Oh God, I'm really starting to feel feverish now. All right. The last time I was on the air feeling like this was a year and a half ago, and Destiny saw me on the air coughing and hacking. And he's like, oh no, we're going to see another right-winger drop dead from COVID. He was joking about me dropping dead from COVID. That's when I actually had COVID. I don't know if I have COVID now. I don't know. I don't know what I have. I just know that I'm starting to get sicker and sicker. As I'm sitting here now, my head is like starting to like basically funk. I'm going to muddle through. Thank you. Thank you. You guys are all very kind. Really. Thank you. Okay. I appreciate it. Okay. I want to share with you my thoughts about the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court has decided to look into this case. They decided to look into this case and decide, is this, what the hell is that? I don't know what that means. I like the fact that there are inside jokes on this show. I forgot about HR 25. What is HR 25? I've never even heard of that before. That's really funny. That's really, really funny. There's Patrick. Okay. Those of you who are new, I apologize. Sam is referencing an inside joke where this guy Patrick used to send me super chat after super chat arguing with me how I need to read HR 25. And I was like, I'm never reading that, and fighting with him about how stupid the overall concept was. But you can go check out HR 25 if you like. That was funny. Okay. So anyhow, here's the thought that I want to give you about the Supreme Court, which is supposed to be looking at this 18 U.S.C. 1512 C2. Those of you who are hopeful that this will lead to the exoneration of hundreds of J6 defendants, I would hold my horses. I have concerns about the Supreme Court knocking out 18 U.S.C. 1512 and freeing hundreds of J6 defendants. While that would be a beautiful thing to see, and we should all pray for that, because these people were wronged. They were wronged by an abusive government, and they were definitely wronged. I am not hopeful. It's difficult for me to remain optimistic that upon review, the Supreme Court is going to just tear up 18 U.S.C. 1512 C2 and say it's void for vagueness. Void for vagueness means it's impossible to know what the hell they're really saying here. And since it's so easy to apply it ridiculously, we have to invalidate the law and tell you to rewrite it. Which the Supreme Court has that power. The reason I'm skeptical is because, as I've talked about the Supreme Court and its consistency right now, we have 3 on the left, 2.5 to 3 on the right, depending on where you hold Gorsuch's. We'll count him as being on the right, and then 3 neocon establishment folks in Roberts, Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, who are all about the establishment and all about keeping our government strong and uniparty and institutions and establishment and anything that's making that stronger, which includes our district attorney offices. So, seeing as that's where they are coming from, I can foresee that there's a fairly decent chance that at least 2 out of 3, we know the 3 on the left are going to be like, no, 1512, come on, it's clear as day. Everyone knows what it says. Everyone knows, look at it. It's really obvious. Corruptly. Official proceeding. Really obvious. Why is this so confusing? I don't understand. They left it vague on purpose because they wanted to give district attorneys the power to go do what they had to do with anyone who's obstructing any proceeding. That's why they had it there. That's how they're going to try and read it. You know, that's how Ketanji Brown Jackson's going to read it. You know, that's how Sotomayor is going to read it. You know, that's how Elena Kagan's going to read it. So now, if we can hope and anticipate that Gorsuch and Alito and Thomas are not going to read it that way, now we're left asking, okay, well, there's 3 in the middle. I got Kavanaugh, Barrett, and Chief Justice Roberts. I can see those 3 folks saying, you know what, we like having district attorneys, giving them wide latitude. We like giving them. We trust them. We need to, sometimes the policies get political. Maybe this got a little too political, but we don't want to strip them the opportunity to use 18 U.S.C. 1512 to help make sure that people are not obstructing proceedings. Maybe they'll clarify what an official proceeding is, but I would be surprised if this is actually an arrow that's taken out of the quiver of district attorneys across the country. I'd be very surprised. I don't expect them to say void for vagueness. They probably should, but I don't think they will. Because I think that on this particular issue, those 3 centrists, they're going to start sounding very left to a lot of us. They'll start sounding very left. Because we'll be like, yay, government, go government, big government, yay. That's my thought. So does that mean that they might say official proceeding has to be trial? They might say that. That would help the J6 defendants, because they'd be like, well, there was no trial that was going on January 6th when we went in there, so it was misapplied to us. That's possible. And that would help Trump too, if he were to somehow lose on this whole presidential immunity issue. Because if he wins on presidential immunity, it doesn't matter what freaking charges they're bringing, he's going to walk free. But if he loses on presidential immunity and they say, well, official proceeding in 18 U.S.C. 1512, all those charges could get knocked out if they limit official proceeding to being a trial, which is what it seems like it was really intended to be. That's probably the best hope. If you care about the J6 defendants and those people who are sitting in prison or might still be awaiting trial, if you care about their best interest in avoiding trial or limiting how much time their sentences are for, that's probably the best you can hope for. That could work. That's certainly a lot more likely than having it knocked out altogether. But I appreciate that. Birthday blessings. I just hope you get better. You get well soon, buddy. Feel better. And tell me a story of 18 U.S.C. 1512. Could be huge. It's, I don't know, Some people are saying it's the worst law they've ever seen. It's the worst statute. It's the worst draft. Some people are saying, I don't know. I'm facing you tomorrow, right? In the playoffs, right? Is that tomorrow? Tomorrow I start facing you? I think so. I think my team is pretty heavily favored. Pretty heavily favored to like really just steamroll. So if I lose this week, I'm gonna be very, very I'll be mildly surprised and rather disappointed. Anyway. But so that's the story of 18 USC 1512. Thank you, Shallow Man. So strong. The Karen AV. The Karen AV. Thank you. I appreciate you. Knowing SCOTUS share one another's drafts before they publish, who do you think may persuade whom on this one? I think Roberts holds a lot of sway. I think Roberts holds a lot of sway over those other two establishment folks. I think this is very much Chief Roberts' court. Chief Justice Roberts' court. Because I think those other two, I think Kavanaugh, Barrett do whatever he wants. And they hold the keys to the kingdom in every decision. So but I'm obviously speculating. There's no way for me to know any better than you. Right? We're all just speculating. So, okay. That was story number 2. This is really awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate all the warm birthday wishes. Thank you. Thank you for jumpstarting that, Brandon. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. I always it's not I don't know what the heck he was talking about, okay? I always thought it was cool that on my half birthday throughout the world, people are giving each other presents and singing carols and very, very excited and like having all sorts of, it's like a national holiday. I always thought that was very cool, but that's my half birthday. On my regular birthday, no one seems to remember it. But everyone celebrates my half birthday. Because, yeah, my birthday is June 25th. Exactly 6 months away from Jesus, which is, I don't know. Maybe that's why Nick Fuentes calls me the Antichrist. Could be. You see his rant? Oh my God. That guy needs a girlfriend so bad. Okay. All right. We covered Judge Chutkan. We covered Supreme Court. Let's move onward. I got so many stories to cover for you guys. I got so much to cover. So much to cover. Knock you out. I don't know why. I think he's the oldest one. I think he's the older one. I think he's been there the longest. I think that's why. I think it's a seniority thing. Did you ever find out who Norman Finkelstein is? No. Am I supposed to find out who Norman, and remember the following, am I supposed to find out who he is? Finkelstein. Norman. I do remember you using that name at me before, and I don't remember what I saw when American political scientist and author Norman Finkelstein. Oh, he's anti-Semitic? I don't know. A self-hating Jew? Is there such a thing? Could such a thing actually exist? Yeah. All right. I don't really care about this guy. I don't care about him. I don't care. So is that how that works? Happy birthday, Joe. You are an OG excellent. Oh, thank you, Eric. You're too kind. People don't realize this, but the cartoon version of Star Trek, which came out in the 70s, was actually pretty cool as cartoons go. Pretty cool. I saw it, like, I didn't see it when it came out. I first saw it, like, I don't know, 15 years ago or so. And I was like, they actually used the voices of William Shatner, and Leonard Nimoy, and DeForest Kelley, and Montgomery, and James Doohan. So it's actually, I highly recommend you check it out if you're a Star Trek fan. You'll probably thank me. Okay. I wanted to share, there's a few side things I want to share with you. We're reaching intermission. So I want to share a few side things that I had to just sort of get off my chest while I cough up phlegm. Okay. Yesterday I spent 45 minutes to an hour watching Drivel. Today I'm going to give you 2.5 minutes of Drivel. In case you're unaware of what's coming soon. There's Drivel coming soon to a theater near you. Look at this hot garbage. Hot mess. Look at this hot mess. Coming to you from woke Hollywood. 19 states have seceded.
The United States Army ramps up activity.
The White House issued warnings to the Western forces as well as the Florida Alliance.
The three-term president assures the uprising.
The three-term president. Because of course, every time in some random report, even if someone kept a third term, this is clearly supposed to be a reference to Trump. Like the horrors of what would happen if Trump gets reelected, and the civil war that would happen, the secession, that every time he'd be referred to as the three-term president. Anytime any news report's talking about him in just casual mention, they would just always refer to him as three. I don't know.
Will be dealt with swiftly.
Let me know if you want to try anything on.
I guess aware there's like a pretty huge civil war going on all across America.
We just try to stay out. With what we see on the news, seems like it's for the best.
Wait, first of all, it's PHLEGM. And second of all, that's not Yiddish. That's English. I'm like 99% sure. That cannot be Yiddish. That's English. Oh, whoops.
On the news, seems like it's for the best.
It looks like really well done Drivel. Don't get me wrong. Really well done Drivel.
Citizens of America.
The so-called Western forces of Texas and California
Have suffered a very great defeat at the hands of the United States military.
The irony is that they're portraying it as if the evil bad guys here is the conservative government. With a straight face, they say this. With a straight face.
Mr. President, do you regret the use of airstrikes against American citizens?
Oh, yeah, there's your minority sage wisdom guy asking, the president about, his use of the white male president about his use of airstrikes on American citizens.
They're moving to D.C. today.
You need to go down there.
They shoot journalists on sight in the Capitol.
They shoot journalists on sight at the Capitol. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. They shoot journalists on sight. In which DC do they think that's like a reality? Oh my God. That's hilarious.
We're moving to D.C. today.
We need to go down there.
They shoot journalists on sight in the Capitol. Every instinct in me says this is death. What?
Every time I survived the war zone, I thought I was sending a warning home. Don't do this. But here we are.
No, I'm a journalist who went to the war zones, and I thought I was telling America, don't do this, but this is what America did to itself by electing Trump as president. This is what they did.
Kind of misunderstanding here. What? We're American, okay? Okay. What kind of American are you?
Oh, there's your MAGA guy with his red shades. He doesn't have the red hat. He's got the red shades, the Aryan blonde hair, blue-eyed, red shade, evil guy with the AK-47. Such a serious movie. Such a serious movie. Oh, this is so serious. This is serious stuff. This is a message home. This is a message home. All about assault rifles. Americans with assault rifles. Every blonde hair, blue-eyed guy wants to kill all the minorities. We all know that. We all know that.
You don't know?
Oh, man, they're going to kill the minorities like they always wanted to. Like they always wanted to.
Forces will reach the White House on July 4th.
Oh my God.
Get in the car! Get in the...
Everything's in the AR-15. Everything.
You're gonna hang back.
I'm not hanging back.
One nation under God.
Oh, it's all those white folks, those white God touting folks who are all the big hardcore racists. Oh my God. This is how they see you. This is how they see you're a cartoon. That's how they see you. You are a cartoon. We could put William Shatner's voice over you. Oh God. That's some belly right there. That's a nice book.
Indivisible. With liberty.
They always use the Constitution to assault minorities.
And justice for all. God bless America.
There you go. Coming soon to an IMAX theater near you. Coming soon to an IMAX theater near you. My first prediction is I think this movie will be more profitable than that Marvel movie. Like, what was it? Marvel, what was it called? Marvel, like Female Rage or something. What was it? What was the last one called? I don't know. What? Marvel Lunar Cycle. What was that? What was that Marvel thing called? I don't remember what that Marvel, you know, kicking it with high heels or something. So there you go. There you go. It's very exciting. Very exciting stuff. I think it's time for us to start talking about O'Keefe. Should we start talking about O'Keefe, or should I talk about the Biden impeachment? I told you there's so much to talk about. There's so much to talk about. I'm making good time here, though. Obama's literally a third-term president. That's true. I don't know what's going on. Perhaps the most preposterous thing beyond the neon-haired sniper is that if Texas and California did this, it would be to stop a right-wing government. If anything, it'd be the red states in both. It'd be red in both states pulling a pin. Yeah, of course. Like, in what world is California and Texas on the same page? I guess where they think there's been all this flooding of California and Texas. So maybe that's what it is. It's like it's hilarious. Washington's on the same page. DC's on the same page as Florida. Okay. Then they pass on Kathy Griffin. I don't know. Joe, I'm just curious. We have a fudge factory here in Indiana called. No. What? No. I don't even believe you. I don't believe you. I think this is totally made up. Absolutely not kosher. This is like, I don't know if it's like literally not kosher or if it's just, figuratively not kosher, but I am declaring this not kosher. So no. Gross. Why do people have to be gross? Why? Oh, God. Sad part is that people actually, of course there are. The makers of 28 days. That's who thinks it's true. Like, oh my gosh, this is so prescient. It's so prescient. We're telling you the future. This is where our society is going. It's such a giveaway when they show the anti-establishment types going ape only when they're guys in the establishment. Like they need permission to do revolution first from the government. Yeah. Okay. You know what? Speaking of which, I guess it's time for us to talk about the Biden impeachment. Let's talk about that, and then we'll go to O'Keefe afterwards. That was a nice segue to the Biden impeachment. Here we go. We'll start with this. So this happened today. Resolution as to whether they should do it. The House should engage in
on this
inquiry.
Vote. The yeas are 221 and the nays are 212.
An inquiry into the impeachment of Joseph R. Biden.
On this vote, the yeas are 221 and the nays are 212. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Now, before we go any further on the whole Biden impeachment thing, obviously this is a show, right? I mean, let's call a spade, because we all know at the end of the day, there's zero chance you're going to get 67 votes out of the Senate. It's just impossible. So it's a show. Does that make it a waste of time because it's a show? Well, probably no more so than virtually anything else Congress does. Because if you think about it, to whatever extent they consider impeachment to actually matter, when there's impeachment in the House lacking any conviction in the Senate, it's not a bad thing to go on record and saying, yeah, your guy kind of sucks. So, yeah. But Democrats who in Congress who pretend that they take themselves seriously just so that they can keep getting reelected were not happy. They were not happy. Here's Jerry Nadler, who's expressing his displeasure. Jerry Nadler in his clown pants and clown shoes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman from New York is recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, we all know why we're here today. The majority has no accomplishments to speak of. Their own members have said so, and the right wing is getting restless.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So since they can't legislate and run on anything positive, they've decided to tear down President Biden instead. They have no evidence, of course, to support this inquiry.
No evidence. No, not the WhatsApp messages, not the tax records, not the proof of payments from Hunter to Joe, not all the admissions that come in these WhatsApp messages, not the whistleblowers, not testimony from Shapley or the other IRS agent, not Devin Archer's testimony. Nothing about the influence peddling or how he's on the phone with like the most notorious criminals on earth who are shelling out money to his son that his son turns over and flips on to Joe Biden. Aside from that, there's literally like no evidence at all, like zero. It's crazy.
But since this majority never lets facts get in the way of a good set of Fox News talking points, here we are.
Fox News talking points. It's like he's so living in 1987 when the right actually cared about Fox News.
We are. Dozens of witnesses have sat for transcribed interviews, and every one of those witnesses tells us the same thing. There was no political interference in the Hunter Biden case. Nobody at the Department of Justice ever blocked the special counsel from bringing charges. Unfortunately, the American public does not have most.
That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. It's that he literally sold. He basically convinced, he helped sell the notion to the most worst, evil, most corrupt companies on the planet that he was for sale. He helped his son sell that notion. That should be treason. That is a worse affront than any vice president has ever done. Ever. It's not even close. Not even close. That is a worse affront than any politician arguably has ever done. I mean, that's how is that not treason? When you help for your own personal gain, do you help sell the notion that DC can be bought by the most corrupt people on the planet, the most evil, nefarious people on the planet, the most vile, disgusting, that the bribery that happens in Ukraine is the exact same thing that is what happens here in Washington, D.C., and that's what the sitting vice president helped his son sell so that his family could be enriched, and you're sitting here pretending that there's no evidence? Are you out of your freaking minds?
To this story, because Chairman Jordan refuses to release the transcripts from our interviews. In fact, of the 85 interviews our committee has conducted so far, he has released exactly one transcript. He knows that if he releases any more than that, his preferred narrative will crumble. The evidence simply does not support these baseless charges. So why is the MAGA wing of the Republican Party resorting to this political stunt? 2 words: Donald Trump. Likely not.
What? What? It's for Donald Trump. This is the new talking point, that they're just doing it for Donald Trump. This is what every politician in Congress, every member of the House and Congress from the Democrat Party got up and started screaming. This is doing the bidding of Donald Trump.
Nominee of the Republican Party, who faces 91 criminal
as if the Uniparty ever acts in concert with Donald Trump.
Charges in various courts, was also impeached not once but twice, and we had evidence. And whenever the former president is accused of wrongdoing,
we had evidence. We just never presented any of it. We didn't even give you the whistleblower that Schiff promised he would present to you.
His favorite move is to accuse his opponent of doing the same. For this to work, of course, he needs President Biden to be impeached.
Wait, Star Trek 5. The odd number ones were always the bad ones, right? Wait, which one was 5? 2 was good. 4 was okay. Most military service personnel from Texas and California, unfortunately for the left, they're all right-wing. Yeah, that's almost without exception.
2. And so he asked his enablers in Congress to invent an impeachment, even if there's not a shred of evidence to back it up. And even if everything Chairman Comer said were true, which none of it is, an impeachable offense committed by Vice President Biden would not be under our Constitution grounds for impeaching President Biden. This is political hackery, not serious work. We should be focused on doing the work of the American people and not be distracted by pernicious nonsense.
Pernicious nonsense.
I urge all members to vote no on this ridiculous resolution. Now you'll back the balance of my time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman from New York is recognized for.
I see that. I see a bunch of you. A bunch of yous are basically saying, "Do it for Donnie. Do it for Donnie. Do it for Donnie."
Stupid Johnny. We'll do it for Johnny.
That's gonna be the new rallying cry. Do it for Johnny. Do it for Johnny. Most of you are too young to get the reference. It's okay though. That's okay. That's okay. I still love you just the same. Oh, Pony Boy. Yeah, there you go. Stay orange. Well done, Gary. Yeah, there you go. All right. So do it for Donnie. All right. Let's hear some other woman screaming really angrily. Really angrily. Very, very upset. They're really not happy. Democrats are really not happy today. This was not a good day to be a Democrat. Not a good day to be a Democrat.
Please. Thank you, Ranking Member and Vice Ranking Member. To my colleagues on oversight, I'm joined by members of the Judiciary Committee, of whom you will hear, particularly Congressman Ivey. Swalwell, I know, is on several committees. Let me use a few constitutional phrases that maybe you've not heard. Hogwash and closing the barn door when all the farm animals have gotten out.
What? She thinks this was a poignant way to phrase it. So does this knucklehead over here in the purple blazer next to her. Okay.
This idea to create a case is an insult to the constitutional process, the very sacred process of impeachment
Is it?
Of the President of the United States of America.
Is it? Is it? Is it though?
This insult is one that goes to the American people who've entrusted us.
This is an outrage
with upholding the truth. The truth is not being upheld here for several reasons.
Oh.
If Hunter Biden is an American citizen, then he should have the right, as has been evidenced by Chairman Comer, to choose a closed door session or to be able to be in a public session.
Why? Why should he have that right? Why is that his call?
Has not been given that right.
Oh, this is his rights are being violated. Do you remember the first two impeachments that we had over the last 5 years? You remember those? We didn't even engage in an inquiry vote. You didn't even have one of those. You're just like, we're impeaching right now for the second one. There was no right to face an accuser. Whistleblower never showed up, even though Adam Schiff promised that he was going to be there.
Their own constitutional scholars, where they held a hearing just a few months ago, indicated that they could not find a scintilla of evidence that would generate impeachment proceedings against the President of the United States. Their own witnesses.
That was 6 months ago, before we had the checks that showed that money was flowing directly from Hunter Biden's corrupt companies to Joe Biden. So things have changed. Things have changed for you, and not in a good way.
And yet they have proceeded. Today's vote is an affirmation vote of one that has happened after they began an investigation of which they have seen nothing to draw a connection between Hunter Biden's actions and the President of the United States, Joe Biden. So we are here only because we have been hauled to come here. We've been hailed to come here. We're here because we respect the American people. We're here because we respect taxpayers' dollars. And we want to show that we are here to protect the integrity of the constitutional process.
The integrity of the constitutional process. The one that you shredded twice in your zeal to go after Trump. Shredded it twice. You're embarrassment. You hypocrite. Gross.
But as my chairman and ranking member has said,
you and that whole consort of jackasses standing around you. A bunch of hypocrites.
There is nothing here. There is nothing burger here. There is nothing for us to proceed on. And I would ask my friends on the Republican side of the aisle to not run their presidential 2024 campaign through the legitimacy of a impeachment proceeding, which is not legitimate.
She realized she just called it legitimate. A legitimacy of impeachment proceeding, which is not legitimate.
And as my friends have said, I too want to deal with student loan. I want to deal with the catastrophe that is happening in our communities where people are fighting to get off the streets, homelessness. I believe that we can fight for any number of issues that are confronting this country, both domestic and international, and not do this to a private citizen who has a right to choose where he wants to be, or to the President of the United States who is being accused of accusations that do not exist. Please be reminded, hogwash.
Hogwash.
And we're still looking for the animals that the barn door got closed on.
And this idiot doesn't even realize what you're basically saying is the money's already. When you say the animals have left the barn, that means the money's already been stolen and it's too late now. She doesn't even realize that that's the implication of her own statement because she's that incompetent. Doofus. Gosh, curse you for making me listen to Jerry Nadler. Dems didn't agree because they paid for the dossier that they manufactured and they know that MSM would carry water for them. That's what I'm saying is that they didn't. It was the most illegitimate impeachments ever. The second one was so illegitimate that they didn't even have the Chief Justice presiding over the Senate hearing. So he was like, "I'm out of here. I'm not into this sham proceeding.
Let's proceed to do what is right for the American people."
Oh, yeah.
And I'm here to do that with you, Chairman, as well as the Judiciary Committee is as well.
Well, like I said, they're not happy. But a couple of folks are. You want to see some happy people? It's Christmas time. We should see happy people. Let's look at happy people. I like watching happy people. Here's a couple of happy people.
All right. Well, I think we've made our point very clear today. Evidence uncovered has shown a very disturbing trend by the Biden family. We've spent months in this investigation accumulating evidence. We have a simple question that I think an overwhelming majority of Americans have. What did the Bidens do to receive the tens of millions of dollars from our enemies around the world? Today's unanimous vote.
What did they do? How did they extract tens of millions from really corrupt agencies who know the right people to bribe? You have to realize the people that were taking money were the experts in bribery because that's how they got to where they got to. They're in corrupt countries like Ukraine and Russia, and they recognize you have to grease the right person in the right place and the right amount in order to get what you want. And they selected the Bidens. So I think our enemies probably know enough about us to say this is the right people to grease.
Our conference showed that we are united as a conference. We expect to have people honor our subpoenas. We want to wrap this investigation up, but obviously you get to the deposition phase before you wrap up an investigation. So that's where we are. We're very pleased with the vote today. I think that sent a message loud and clear to the White House. We expect you to comply with our information requests and our subpoenas. With that, I'll turn it over to Chairman Jordan.
Turn it over to Chairman Jordan.
I would say that the House has now spoken, and I think pretty loudly, pretty clearly, with every single Republican voting in favor of moving into this official impeachment inquiry phase of our constitutional duty to do oversight. So when a majority of the House goes on record in support of an official impeachment inquiry with the power that resides solely in the House of Representatives, this impeachment power, I think that sends a message. And as Chairman Comer just pointed out, we now think this helps us get the witnesses, the key witnesses that we want. There were 3 names mentioned in the resolutions, 918, 917 resolutions, 3 names. One, of course, was the President of the United States, Joe Biden. The other 2 names are 2 lawyers we want to talk to. I said this on the House floor, who DOJ is refusing to allow us to talk to, Mark Daley and Jack Morgan. We think it'll help us get those key individuals in to speak to us in a more timely fashion and get us the documents that Mr. Comer has been after for a while. So we think this is a strong message from the House, a strong message from the Republican conference, and that every single member voted for it. Thank you all very much.
Nice.
We're going to work on that as quick as we can, but there has to be, we have to put together a resolution. I assume that'll go through Chairman Comer's committee, but we'll work on that. Our lawyers, the oversight lawyers, will put that together, talk to our members, and move forward with that as quickly as we can.
What information are y'all waiting on that y'all have not received?
What information are you waiting on that you're not yet received?
Jamie can talk to that, but as far as witnesses go, I've said this many times, we want to talk to all the partners. We want to talk to Rob Walker, Eric Schwerin, Tony Bobolinsky, Jim Biden. We want to talk to the guy who paid his taxes, Kevin Morris.
Let me tell you something. If these are public hearings, I am definitely going to be live streaming them. Right here. I'll be sitting here giggling away, hopefully with a voice that sounds a little bit less nasally than my voice sounds tonight. But if there are House hearings where they actually had to do this on live TV, you will find it right here.
Paid Hunter Biden's taxes. We have Ms. Wolf who's coming in. We're getting a chance to talk to her soon. And then we want to talk to Sally Painter and Tramontana, who were with Blue Star Strategies. All these individuals are important. And then we still want to talk to Hunter Biden. But we want to talk to the. We'd like.
Can you imagine Hunter or Jim Biden under oath? Every question. I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I plead the fifth. You're pulling out. I plead a fifth. Fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh my God. The only way that can be better is if he's obviously coked up when he goes in there. Jim Biden, Hunter Biden. Let's get his cousin in there. Let's get his let's get Bo's widow. Let's get them all in there. Get them all in there. Just plead the fifth over and over. We need a piece similar to replace the dove. Maybe the pillow. There's way more feathers and no dangerous beak, or at least a much less harmless one. I think pillows can be used to peacefully lay people to sleep. I don't know that the pillow is the symbol you're necessarily looking for. Let me see what's going on over here. Let me peek on you guys. I'm peeking on you guys. Denise Sands says, Joe, what about the young man who committed suicide because he was facing a felony charge? Nothing will bring him back. So sad. That's true. That's true. That is sad. I don't know what even say to that. Thank you for the tip, Triggered of Oz. You the man. You're the man. All right. I'll never forget you, HR 25. I'll never forget you. All right. Let's. Oh wait, is there more here? There's another 40 seconds.
I'd talk to them in frankly that order.
There are 5,000 roughly emails in the pseudonyms. The National Archives has sent about 1,200 pages of that, so they're a third of the way through. We know these pseudonym emails are important because I believe they were mentioned in the indictment in California. So we expect to get these. Obviously, they're an important part of the investigation. We've asked to speak with Dana Remus and others in the White House, and they were told not to come. So
you know what would be delicious irony? It'd be delicious irony. Because if you work out the timing, so an inquiry proceeding, like they're gonna have to interview some folks and whatever and get into it before they obviously ultimately recommend impeachment and begin an impeachment trial. Right? I mean, that's where we're headed. And I just think it would be so delicious, such delicious irony if they can orchestrate this. If March 4th, 2024, instead of it being the commencement of Trump's criminal proceeding, it's the commencement of Joe Biden's impeachment hearings. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. That's what I would love to see. It's like Mamash Hapachu. It's like ultimate stuck. Give you a little Jew in there. Shoved a little Jew in there. That'd be so delicious. If the day before Super Tuesday, when it's like they're crying about the fact that that trial still stayed, is sitting there, and we start swearing in witnesses to impeach him. Oh my God, that'd be amazing. And the timing works. The timing really works. It really could happen. Let's see.
So it's very clear the White House has been obstructing our investigation. I think the message sent today is very loud and clear. We expect them to comply.
Thank you.
Well, there you go. Okay. I'm right on pace here. US 18-201 bribery. Can Joe be accused of bribery when Hunter gets the cash? Yeah, if you help someone engage in bribery, he can. Even if he never... Yes. I actually looked into this, I don't know, like 4 or 6 months ago. Look, we ultimately know that, the pardon has already been written. The pardons have already been written, sealed, and delivered from Joe to Hunter. We know that. Right? I mean, if I was Hunter, I'd be like, look, Pop, you're not well, and you're not a young man, and I really need you to sign off on these things right now. before someone deems you mentally incapacitated. So if you could just like sort of, put your little John Hancock on that part in there and wash away all these sins, so that God forbid something terrible happens to you, I don't have to worry that I'm going to be spending the rest of my life in jail, and that your bastard grandchild won't have a father that you won't recognize. Yeah, I can see that he probably signed off on that. Probably signed off on that. Okay. And the last story I wanted to cover before I get into the whole, I just want to give you a heads up that I do plan on trying to wrap here by midnight. It's my goal. I'm not sure if I'll finish on time. I am planning on wrapping up by midnight. Last story I want to cover here is IBM and their racism on Locals. After this show ends, I'm going to be on Locals covering a philosophical question, which was really raised here. In fact, I'm going to tease it out a little bit now. I'll tease it out a little bit. This is what got me started on this. It was someone from the Quartering, who's a friend of mine, who said, gay men buying babies is child trafficking. Gay men buying babies is child trafficking. They pay money for a woman's egg, money to a lab to create their little accessory, money to a woman to carry. See a pattern here? They exchange the money at several junctures to purchase a child that will never know its mother. So that is his case to say that gay men buying babies is child trafficking. It's a very serious accusation that Jeremy's leveling there. And I think it merits philosophical scrutiny. So, and that's the sort of thing I tend to cover on Locals when I'm sitting there trying to break down, okay, what do we understand about child trafficking? Why is child trafficking such a terrible evil, which it obviously is, but what about it makes it such an evil? And does this fit in with those definitions? And I'm going to get very philosophical. That's going to be on Locals after I wrap up the show here. The link is in the description below. So it's going to be right. I'm going to probably grab some sort of lozenge and start the show up a couple minutes after I finish up here. So, see, and I'm seeing real disparate opinions here between Quartering has jumped the shark to it's human trafficking, it's creepy AF. See, very different. Very different. Or this question, which is obviously an interesting question. Why is it different for a straight couple? What makes it any different for a straight couple? It's a fair question. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I'm exploring that on Locals, which if you can't afford the $5 a month, I get it. It's a Biden economy. Bidenomics makes it harder than ever for people to be able to afford $5 a month. If you cannot afford it, let me know. I'll take care of you for free. I'll hook you up. It's Christmas time, baby. And I'd much rather have you participate than be excluded. The $5 monthly is designed to basically encourage those people who do have the money to kick in what they can. So, okay. GOP. So that's what I'm going to be covering on Locals around it's scheduled to start 12:10 a.m., which I expected. I'm on pace. All right. GOP stop making sense. Makes sense. That's pretty funny. And impeachment on Purim. Ben Hapachu indeed. It would be great, right? That is Purim, right? That is when Purim starts. It's right then. Okay. Is it any more trafficking than heterosexual women buying surrogate babies like the Kardashian women? Who says that's not trafficking? Why is that not trafficking? You have to ask yourself that question. In general, you have to ask how is adoption better than trafficking? So you sort of need to sort of parse through in your brain what makes child trafficking bad. Which it is. I mean, obviously it's bad, but what about it is bad? And there's probably different perspectives as to why child trafficking is bad. Is it about the liberty of the child? Is it about the slave element to it? Is it ownership of a human? There's so many different ways to look at child trafficking. Is it the concern for the welfare of the child? There's a lot of different questions, a lot of different things to examine. And that's what I plan on doing on Locals. All right. But before we get to that, let's talk about what James O'Keefe has done. Let's talk about what James O'Keefe has done, because that man has done some good work. He's done some good work. Baga. That's not doing anything. That's not helping. Stop this. Refresh here.
Underrepresented and gender. You got to move both forward by a percentage. That leads to a plus on your bonus. By the way, if you lose part of your bonus. I'm not trying to finesse this. So for blacks, we should try to get towards 13-point-something%. On Hispanics, you got to get into the mid-teens. So let me say it. Asians in the U.S. are not an underrepresented minority in a tech company.
James O'Keefe, you're out.
Screw the Asians. Screw the Asians. This was in 2021, by the way. 2 years ago is when that clip was, when the entire left was screaming, "Stop Asian hate." That's what they were screaming. Stop Asian hate. Stop Asian hate, you freaking white racists. Stop Asian hate. And he's like, fire the Asians. They're such hypocrites. They're such hypocrites. Oh, my God.
Side of IBM's corporate.
Well, Harvard was basically saying, oh, you're Asian. We're not going to let you in here. We got too many of you already. The worst, most evil racists. Most evil racists, the left.
Headquarters in Armonk, New York, an IBM insider has provided us with an internal video showing the CEO of IBM, Arvind Krishna, using coercion to fire people and take away their bonuses unless they discriminate in the hiring process.
Let me go deeper in the Red Hat. Multiple leaders over the last year plus that were held accountable to the point that they're no longer here at Red Hat because they weren't willing to live up to the standards that we set.
The DEI standards, diversity, equity, and inclusion standards.
In this space. This conversation takes place every single day, and a lot of it's behind the scenes.
They terminated executives that didn't discriminate, yet another violation of Title VII. One of the biggest companies in the world, one of the most valuable and recognizable brands on earth. IBM Insider has provided us with an internal video showing the CEO of IBM, Arvind Krishna, using coercion to fire people and take away their bonuses unless they discriminate in the hiring process, which appears to be a violation of Title VII. This comes on the heels of IBM pulling advertising from Elon Musk's X, with IBM saying they have zero tolerance for discrimination. Quote, IBM has zero tolerance for discrimination, and we've immediately suspended all advertising on X while we investigate.
So let me add a couple of things.
So this is an old. I want to ask you a question, and this is a serious question that I only just popped into my head right now. And maybe it's the lack. It's the lack of Tylenol Dayquil that's like making my brain sort of like fritter a little bit here. And if it is, I apologize. There's a common, well-known thing called, self-hating Jew. Is there such a thing as self-hating white man, which Paul Cormier seems to be? Is there such a thing as a self-hating white man? I would respectfully submit, I think you can mull that over before I give my opinions.
With a Red Hat flavor on it. I think Arvind laid it out pretty well, but let me go deeper in the Red Hat. And as Arvind very much pointed out, and I very much understand, I am accountable. I hold myself accountable. He holds me accountable, as does the board for all of IBM. But we also hold the leadership at Red Hat accountable for that. I mean, I'll be very candid. Without an exception for privacy, I could name multiple leaders over the last year plus that were held accountable to the point that they're no longer here at Red Hat because we
fired folks because they weren't living up to DEI standards.
Weren't willing to live up to the standards that we set in this space. And so, as I said, I'm accountable to Arvind on this as well as to IBM. For example,
So stupid, these folks.
One of the changes I made, I named a D&I lead person in Margaret reporting directly to me and the CLT. We have Margaret sits on the CLT as the D&I functions, and this is worked on every single one of our meetings. This conversation takes place every single day.
Every day we focus on DEI. He's so proud of himself, this cuck.
And a lot of it's behind the scenes, but let me show you this is happening. We're never going to cross the DEI off our list of priorities. This is an ongoing thing.
That was Paul Kernier, CEO of Red Hat, which is a software company owned by IBM, saying that they terminated executives that didn't discriminate, yet another violation of Title VII.
So we take underrepresented and gender. You got to move both forward by a percentage. That leads to a plus on your bonus. By the way, if you lose part of your bonus. Paul's head.
Wow. So if somebody retires and it's a minority and you replace them with a white dude, you're done. You're going to lose your bonus. Wow.
To the same standards. Paul and I have been working together to say, okay, how do we apply those deeper into the organization?
That was the head of IBM saying he's going to reduce the bonus if you don't hit your racial quotas. Arvind Krishna is using racial considerations in making the work environments diverse and doing so coercively by placing burdens on employees to do so, like the removal of bonus or termination. That's also a violation of Title VII.
I'm very clear about this. I expect at the executive level, so that is not just my directs, but all executives in the company have to move forward by 1% on both underrepresented minorities. So let me say it, Asians in the US are not an underrepresented minority.
Asians in the US are not an underrepresented. Go after the Asians too. Go after them.
Company. However, others are. Ditto on gender diversity.
This dude's an Asian. He doesn't realize that, but he is an Asian.
Now, at least 13 state attorney generals have put companies on notice that they should not be using racial discrimination in the hiring process. These attorney generals include Kansas, Tennessee, Alabama, Arkansas, Indiana, Nebraska, Iowa, South Carolina, Kentucky, West Virginia, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana. Paul Kernier did not disclose the names of his employees that were terminated, but we at OMG welcome you, if you have been fired, to reach out to us on our tip line, contact us on our website or on Signal. We'd like to speak to you. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 states it shall be unlawful employment practice for an employer to fail or refuse to hire or discharge any individual or otherwise to discriminate any individual with respect to his compensation, terms, conditions, or privileges of employment because of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. In terms of national origin of the Civil Rights Act, the CEO of IBM, Arvind Krishna, also specifically targeting Asians in this private leak recording.
Well, let me say it.
Which to be clear, the Supreme Court has made it very clear in the Harvard case that reverse racism, reverse discrimination against white people is discrimination. So now that case came out after this meeting, because it came out last year or 6 months ago. But reverse discrimination, a lot of people are going to focus on, their discrimination against Asians as let's grab onto this to show how racist they are. But discrimination against white folk is just as much an affront as against Asians.
Asians in the US are not an underrepresented minority in a tech company.
This recording comes in the context of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. Allison Showalter is on this private leaked video inside IBM talking about DEI.
Our last question is about diversity, equity, and inclusion. IBM highlights their progress in promoting and recruiting underrepresented minorities in executive roles and holding executives accountable for D&I goals. At Red Hat, executive representation is dismal and there is no accountability for DEI work.
Elon Musk has just come out against DEI and quotas last week. We've reached out to Elon Musk for comment, Allison for comment, Krishna for comment, and Paul for comment.
IBM Security.
Hey there. This is James O'Keefe with OMG News, looking to talk to the CEO of IBM.
Do you have an appointment?
I do not.
Does anybody know that you're coming?
Possibly. Depends upon how much I'm surveilled, which the likelihood of that is quite high. But is there a possibility we could speak with Krishna today?
You would have to make an appointment before that.
Elon Musk joining the cause to abolish DEI, consistently critical of programs like this. IBM canceling their advertising on a list of companies that includes Disney. Now, some more context here. This video is from 2021, but we just obtained it last week from an insider, a whistleblower inside IBM. IBM, one of the biggest companies in the world, here in Westchester, New York, at their corporate headquarters, just outside New York City. One of the most valuable and recognizable brands on earth. IBM is one of the 30 companies indexed in the Dow Jones, one of the main indicators of the health of U.S. and global stock markets. This is James O'Keefe in Westchester County, New York, reporting for OMG News.
So there you go.
Our last question is about diversity, equity, and inclusion. IBM highlights their progress in promoting and recruiting underrepresented minorities in executive roles and holding executives accountable for D&I goals. At Red Hat, executive representation is dismal and there is no accountability for DEI work. Why do you not hold Paul to the same standards for diverse staffing and leadership as IBM does?
Oh, I hold Paul actually to the exact same standards. Let me begin with that. The rest of you may not realize this, but Paul is part of my direct executive pool, right? Not just part of Red Hat. Consequently, I'm very clear about this. I expect at the executive level, so that is not just my directs, but all executives in the company have to move forward by 1% on both underrepresented minorities. So let me say it, Asians in the US are not an underrepresented minority in a tech company. However, others are. Ditto on gender diversity. So we take underrepresented and gender. You got to move both forward by a percentage. That leads to a plus on your bonus. By the way, if you lose part of your bonus.
How stupid he is. But this is not the stupidest part of it all. This is not the stupidest part of it all. What's stupider is his response after this expose came out. And we're going to watch that shortly.
Paul held to the same standards. Paul and I have been working together to say, okay, how do we apply those deeper into the organization? By the way, just to make people give you one statistic, this is not executives. When I looked at our entire recruiting for the first now 6 months and 14 days of the year, IBM recruits in the tens of thousands. 41%, 40 point something, so I'll round up to 41%, are gender diverse, meaning women, which I think is our high watermark. But in all of them,
because in the tech industry, it's so hard to find women. Most women are not into the tech industry. It's really hard to do that.
We want to get to the representational demographics of the underlying populations. I'm not trying to finesse this. So for blacks, we should try to get towards 13 point something percent. On Hispanics, you got to get into the mid-teens. On gender, okay, we are somewhere in the mid-30s, I think, for all of IBM. But I think if I notice right, the representational is 50. Maybe Allison can correct me. I think it's actually, by biology, you can go debate this. I think it's actually slightly over 50. I think it's 50.1 or something. And so we should try to aspire. And that's why I say, let's improve 1 point a year. I don't like to set a target for a small group. But for the executive population, I want to say, hey, you got to improve by 1% a year. If we improve by that, then a few years we'll actually get to where we want to get to. And that, by the way, includes Paul. So yep, you said the question as a Paul's not included. Paul's very much included in that.
So let me add a couple of things with a Red Hat flavor on it. I think Arvin laid that out pretty well, but let me go deeper in the Red Hat.
We're going to get
the assertion there is no accountability around D&I efforts at Red Hat is really not the full picture. And as Arvin very much pointed out, and I very much understand, I am accountable. I hold myself accountable.
You inspired me to pull this up, and I'm going to share it with the audience soon.
He holds me accountable, as does the board for all of IBM. But we also hold the leadership at Red Hat accountable for that. I mean, I'll be very candid. Without an exception for privacy, I could name multiple leaders over the last year plus that were held accountable to the point that they're no longer here at Red Hat because they weren't willing to live up to the standards that we set in this space. And so, as I said, I'm accountable to Arvin on this as well as to IBM. We've been transparent with a lot of the work that we've done in being in the space, and progress is being made. For example, one of the changes I made, I named a D&I lead person in Margaret reporting directly to me and the CLT. We have Margaret sits on the CLT as the D&I functions And this is worked on every single one of our meetings. This conversation takes place every single day. And a lot of it's behind the scenes, but let me assure you, this is happening. All of our leaders here are committed to change and improving Red Hat's environment to be more inclusive and diverse. We're working on determining those metrics for success and how we want to measure our progress right now. They will be implemented very, very soon. And we've been able to do this because we've moved D&I to my staff, and because we've put more focus on it with Margaret as well as others. We are and continue to hold and going to hold even more our executives accountable for all of this, and they will have metrics around this. And so I think it's important that we understand this. What you might not see behind the scenes does not ensure that it's not happening. And these goals will be out soon. In addition to the goals we're working on, the DEI team with the People's Analytics team is establishing dashboards that will all be able to
can all make sure that the right boxes are checked and that all the people are rounded up appropriately. That's basically what IBM is all about, and that's what they've always been about, as was pointed out by St. Sinner. Because if we pull up over here and we look at what IBM was in the 1930s, so when there used to be Hollerith, he patented the electric tabulating machine, and in the 1930s, the Nazis reportedly made extensive use of Hollerith punch card alphabetic accounting equipment, and IBM's majority-owned German subsidiary, Deutsche Hollerith Maschinen GmbH Damping, supplied this equipment from the early 1930s. This equipment was critical to Nazi efforts to categorize citizens of both German and other nations that fell under German control through ongoing censuses. This census data was used to facilitate the roundup of Jews and other targeted groups. They're so caring. They're so concerned. They're so concerned. See, they're crossing the waters to ensure give a helping hand to Nazi Germany. They're very concerned people, and to catalog their movements through the machinery of the Holocaust, including internments in the concentration camps. Such a good job. IBM is so concerned, so concerned. Nazi concentration camps operated a Hollerith department called Hollerith Abteilung. Back. Which had IBM machines, including calculating and sorting machines. There's much debate amongst the history community about whether IBM was complicit in the use of these machines, whether the machines used were IBM branded, and even whether tabulating machines were for use for this purpose at all. So there you go. Maybe they weren't quite so heinous. Who can really know for sure? But what's interesting is that his response today, he thought he's bailing himself out. This video that we're about to watch after I go through the super chats from Debbie and others, this is something that this is exhibit 1 as to why you should never make a public statement without consulting with an attorney, because he actually makes Musk's legal battle, whose Musk is a political enemy of his, he helps Musk, helps X, and shoots himself in the foot while thinking that he's somehow exonerating himself. He actually and makes the upcoming lawsuit against IBM that much worse for IBM. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to watch, and I'll walk you through it in a moment. First, let's get to Debbie here. So what's on your mind? I'm going to give you, for all these, I'm going to give you invested in four of these $20 super chats. I have a question about this. It's going to take a couple of chats. I worked for a tech company that had federal contracts. Most do. The federal government requires they meet these diversity quotas. They're tested every couple of years. They can lose Fed contracts if they don't comply. This directly impacted most middle-aged white guys when I was working, but hit white women too. We were also rewarded for hitting those targets. In fact, our candidate slates had to include certain target candidates, or we couldn't start interviewing. It's a double-edged sword for companies like IBM and others that have Fed contracts. So how can these companies that want to keep their contracts avoid this? Again, I'll give you one more. what they could have done to avoid it is they could have brought suit to say, hey, these demands you're putting on us are illegal. That's what they could have done, because they are illegal. They are illegal. To say, but you're making a fair point, which is you're basically saying this is not something simply the private company. This is government which motivated private companies to behave in the way that they're behaving, and not only motivating, but basically saying you must do this if you want to get our fat contracts. So you're saying it's not really their fault. Like they want to be able to take advantage of these contracts, and how are they supposed to do that? And I guess what they could have done is they could have brought suit against the government, or they could say we're not going to bend the knee to government wishes and try and get part of their. It's not like I don't think they went into the industry because of government programs. They probably were in the industry and they're like, oh, this would be a good, cool thing to partake in. And then they could have stayed in the industry and then brought suit saying, hey, we're being disqualified illegally because what they're demanding we do is they're demanding we engage in racism. In the tech industries in particular, where I do not believe there is equal representation that in any way reflects the national averages, where there's 13% of Americans are Black and like 15% are Latino and whatever. I think that's like something like around 50% are white or something like that. There's and 50% of all people in America, 50.1% are women. You basically have to, if you want to try and get to 51% of your company being all women in the tech industry, you have to hire anyone, no matter how incompetent they are. Because there's just not that many women in the tech industry. There's not that many Black. I don't think that 13%. I think that if you try getting to 13% of Black I don't think in the Black community, I don't think there's a lot of people who are going into tech. It basically means anyone who's a Black person who goes into tech, IBM has to offer them a job and try and woo them away from anyone else who wants them. It's insanity. It's insanity. This is the problem this is the problem with programs which are geared in equal outcome rather than equal opportunity. Because the work product ultimately is going to suffer. It has to. I hope that sufficiently answered your question. Before I wrap up here, I want to share with you what Arvind Krishna said today and how he stuck his foot in his mouth far worse than it was just 24 hours ago. This is a delicious thing to watch.
The last office hours of this year. Look, I want to start by addressing something that has occupied a certain, I'll use the word small media firestorm, maybe large media firestorm.
Small media firestorm. Really? You don't know what's coming.
I want to start by addressing something that has occupied a certain, I'll use the word small media firestorm, maybe large media firestorm on X. And that is a piece of news by a journalist called, I think, James O'Keefe. And he published a video of an internal town hall, I think from June of 21.
Yep.
That I did at Red Hat.
Yep.
And the firestorm is around a set of topics that are asserting, though the language is more...
you think Paul's reading all his... He probably was reading all his comments.
I'll call it deterministic, but it's asserting that what we did is illegal and we are...
Hey, Tankrat, good to see you, brother. It's just disgraceful. IBM cares more about woke ideology than the duty of shareholders and customers. He's about to pretend that that's not the case in this video here. But you're going to see, I'm going to point out every time he sticks his foot in his mouth and says something that really, like Elon Musk is going to love. His attorneys are going to love saying love. And something that IBM's attorneys are going to be cringing. If they haven't already cringed when they saw how stupidly he stuck his foot in his mouth.
Doing discrimination. So let me just give some context. We, IBM, did pull advertising from X about a month ago. We have actually no position. X can do whatever it wants to do, around free speech, promoting of political opinions. I think and really fundamentally believe is up to X and their management and their ownership. We have no view on it, positive, negative, or anything. What we do not want is that our ads on X are next to content that we find objectionable. By the way, we would do the same for any site. It's not unique to X.
Boom! Boom! X's attorneys saw this and were like, huzzah! Huzzah! Thank you, Arvind. Thank you, 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 Arvind. Thank you, Arvind. Thank you, Arvind. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Arvind. Why? Why are they so excited? The reason they're so excited is because there were two different events that happened at the exact same time or so close in time that it's very difficult. That X had a problem with their lawsuit against Media Matters. The problem that X had was that you had Media Matters coming out with their ridiculously crazy, let's figure out how to make it look as if that IBM ads are going to be right next to these advertisements for Hitler Youth, and tell them this is what viewers are going to see. This is what viewers are going to see. And right around then is when Musk made the worst gaffe in his life, where he basically was like, oh yeah, all the Jews, they're basically trying to overthrow the earth or something stupid along those lines, and then tried walking it back and explaining how it wasn't, I wasn't thinking anti-Semitic. No, I was saying like the ADL is kind of retarded in how they try to control everything. But which is something I've said. I've said that many times. The ADA is terrible. They're a disaster. They're just not representing Jews. They're run by Jews. They're just not representing Jews. But the problem that they had, that X's lawyers were looking at, was this. So all these people start bailing shortly after his comments. And that happened like right around the same day as the Media Matters article. And the question is, when you want to establish damages, and all these people are fleeing X, are they fleeing X because of Media Matters? Or are they fleeing X because Elon, they interpreted Elon as being anti-Semitic? It's a tough thing. It's a tough thing to establish. Who knows? They could lie, they could whatever. They give all these different, who knows? That's going to require discovery. It's going to require a whole deep investigation to figure out what was going through their minds. Maybe they did leave. That's what Devin yesterday in Legal Eagle was screaming. He's like, no. They didn't leave because of Media Matters. They left because you came up with your stupid anti-Semitic rant there, saying the actual truth to some crazy Jew hater. And they left because of you, not because of Media Matters. Now, Media Matters tried sticking its own foot in his mouth, shoving it in there and saying, here are all the people who left ever since we came out with our article, which made their attorneys basically like, shut up, stop talking, oh my God, please stop talking. But they're saying, look at the power and influence we have. We got IBM to leave, we got Apple to leave, we got all these companies to leave. Trying to blow their own horns and breaking their arm, twisting it to pat themselves on the back. And if you're Media Matters attorneys, you want to be like, no. They all left because of Elon, not because of our article. There's no damages here. There's no damages. You have to prove, you have to prove beyond preponderance of evidence that it's more likely than not that the reason they left was because of the Media Matters article, even if there was some defamation, even if or business disparagement. You have to prove it's because of us. And how are you going to prove that? How are you going to prove that? And there's going to be a motion to dismiss. And they'd be like, there's no way they can ever prove that. Along comes the likes of Arvind Krishna. He's like, you know why we left? We left because we learned that our stuff was going to be right next to this racist stuff. Nothing about Elon, nothing about what Elon wrote. We just have no tolerance. No tolerance. In other words, we were scared of what Media Matters said. Media Matters scared us into leaving. Amazing. Elon Musk should send this guy, he should send him like a bouquet of roses. God bless you, Arvind, you stinking racist. God bless you, you stinking anti-white racist. You white-hating racist.
And we found our ads were coming up next to objectionable material, and we weren't satisfied with any answer of how that was going to be managed or controlled. And thereby we said, we're not going to advertise on X anymore. I think that's a right that we have as a company. We can pick which media we decide. Clearly, the management team and the ownership there took umbrage on that and have been quite clear about that. Mr. O'Keefe looked at this.
So here we go. So first and foremost, he starts off by basically saying, don't worry, Elon, I got your back. Okay. It was because of Media Matters that we left. And you can play this over, take a clip of this, and when they move to dismiss, saying you'll never be able to establish damages, show them this and say, no, they got us to leave. We left because of Media Matters.
And probably got somebody internal, because it's an internal video there. So the assertion is that we are being discriminatory in our hiring practices.
Now he's about to stick his foot in his mouth and screw over IBM. First, he helped X and Elon. Now he's about to screw over IBM. Watch him go. You go, Arvin. You go, Arvin. Go, Arvin. It's your birthday. Go, Arvin.
So let me
Arvin.
talk about this.
Yeah, let's talk about this. You just keep right on rambling. Right on rambling. Hey, young attorneys. If you're at a deposition, you ask a question, and some jackass just starts going on, who's on the other side from you, just starts never make the rookie mistake of cutting him off. Never make the rookie mistake of cutting him off. You let him talk, because sometimes you get a doozy like what this guy says. And as he's talking and trying to justify all of his positions, if you want to understand how bad what he's saying is for IBM, I want you to do yourself a favor so that you can appreciate it in real time. Every time he talks about trying to help minorities, in your brain, just pretend that instead he's saying, I want to help white people. And every time he's talking about, representation of white people, pretend he says black people. Just flip it. Whatever race he's talking about, just flip it. So if he's talking about how Asians, there's too many Asians, instead of Asians, hear Latinos. Okay? And if you listen to it with that ear, you can understand how stupid his whole explanation is. Okay? When he's talking about women, hear men. When he says men, listen, hear the word woman. If you listen with that ear, you start laughing at like this is his defense. This is what this guy said. Oh my God.
Do I believe that we should be an inclusive culture? Absolutely.
Okay.
I am not changing our mind on that. Do we believe that we should lean in and make sure that all communities feel welcome? Absolutely. I did reference a 5% plus minus. This, by the way, is only on executive bonus pool.
So it's not everywhere. It's only the executive bonus pool. It's all fine.
For those who make improvement by 1% on certain underrepresented minorities.
Oh, so if you improve white people, how many white people are here by 1%, we'll give you a bonus. Okay.
Now, I think that people misconstrue what this means.
Oh.
It is not a target. So if any of you hear that there is a target,
you said expressly, if it goes down by 1%, you're going to lose money.
Come to me. We do not want targets. I'm quite clear about that. Why? Let's just look at it. It's a 5% change. That means 95% of exec bonuses are driven by business performance. What drives business performance? Having the best people in the role.
Oh.
So if 95% says...
So in other words, okay, go on.
Go get the best person. The 5% simply says, but try to have a diverse slate and try to make sure that you're being inclusive in...
So try to have a white race, right? Okay.
All that you pick from. So I want to be quite clear about this. We always want the best people because that drives the bulk of our performance. It drives how our employees feel. It drives everything else. That is why 95.
So what that means is that if you're not one of his favored races and you're projected to help the company by $20 million and you're one of the favored races, a different candidate is one of the favored races, and he's likely to help the company by $19.8 million, that because of that 5% difference, you're stupid if you don't take the minority who's bringing in 19.8%. So, yeah, still a problem. Still a problem, Arvind.
Fine. Okay. Now, as laws change, as whatever happens, we will always try to comply with the law. But we lean in. Being inclusive is a deep, deep fundamental principle we have had.
Oh, yeah. Sticking up for the white race is a deep, deep fundamental principle.
I think for over 80 years.
For 80 years, back to when we were helping the Nazis round up the Jews. We're very, very inclusive. Very inclusive.
Think about the strides IBM has made. We were amongst the first to put women into executive management. I think that is either 1930s, late 30s. We were amongst the first to hire blacks into positions of management in IBM in the United States. I think that was in the 1940s. We have leaned in on what today is referred to as the LGBTQ, these things. But I'll admit, in the 1990s when we started, it was a good 15 years before it became mainstream. It was about same-sex couples. We want to be inclusive. We want our employees to feel that they can bring their whole self to work. And that is the context. Everything else is a minor tool that helps that context. And I want to be clear about that principle, and I want to be clear about that. We do not believe we did anything illegal. Now, there is clearly a set of people who are going to make inflammatory statements, which were not things that we said, because they claim we are going to fire people. We said no such thing. We said the pool of the bonus goes 5%.
That's literally what Paul Cormier said. He said we had to let some people go because they were not doing DEI sufficiently. We had to fire folks because they didn't do enough DEI for our tastes.
Plus or minus. By the way, the 5% plus or minus is nothing. If we can, by the way, do a little bit more on cash flow, the bonus will be a lot bigger. By the way, not just bonus, but also GDP. If we can do better on revenue growth than what we have committed to the street, all of these will be much, much bigger. So they have far bigger impacts. And I hope that everybody is quite aware of that and is able to put it in that context. Many of those attacks, by the way, are going to be about me, the individual. Look, I have a thick skin. I'll go deal with it. Our board is quite aware of what's going on between the board, our shareholders, me. We'll go deal with it. I would recommend all of you should not respond. Anything there will just cause more of a response. So I would highly recommend don't feel this thing. However, the principles are just laid out. If you get asked by friends and family, you can feel free to talk about it in that context. Am I aware that there may be pockets inside IBM where people take these to be far more stringent, far more black and white?
I think black and white. Whoops.
Should be careful and not make it black and white and not make it stringent. So I also want to be clear about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, the proof of the pudding is going to be in the eating. The question is, like, how much higher is your percentages compared to everyone else? How many people have been let go since you started announcing these policies? How many? That's where the proof of the pudding is going to be. Karen Manning says, Viva thinks Schadenfreude is a sin. I don't think it is. I don't think I wouldn't call it it's reflective of poor character. When I'm sitting, I'll tell you this much. When I'm sitting here laughing at people, I laugh at their hypocrisy. I'm laughing at their getting, it's not a matter of, I just want to see people get punished for the sake of being punished. I want to see retribution. I want justice. I want justice, baby. Give me justice. So anyhow, as I mentioned earlier, wow, I'm right on time. That's amazing. That is amazing. This is what I'm going to be talking about on Locals right now. Gay men buying babies is child trafficking. Creep. Is gay men buying babies child trafficking? That is the question, the topic that I will be talking about on Locals. I'm going to be starting that up in roughly 5 minutes. I'm going to grab a drink of water, freshen up a little bit, and then I'll probably just kick an hour in there. Again, If you can't afford the $5, hit me up. I'll give you the code. Free code. Won't cost you a penny. Won't cost you a penny. Okay? That's the story. I hope to be here tomorrow, God willing, assuming I'm feeling okay. And stay happy. Eat some bugs. And as always, my friends, I say to you, Godspeed. Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. Godspeed.